Hello, welcome to the storytelling. I showed you this before a long time ago. The best of stories, best ghost stories, and I found one. I did start one, but I found a better one. I thought it might be interesting. It's about schools. Yeah, I watch a lot of things about schools. I think it's called. Anyway, it's called the best ghost stories. So I will. This is a haunted channel. There's a things, as you know. So what I have decided to do, this is old-fashioned writing. So it is in gaps. We used normally write in paragraphs, don't we? This is a bit long-winded. A bit. You got punctuations and all that, but if it looks like it's because it's an old kind of book. It's a collector's library from different writers. One you would know, Robert. The Body Snatcher by Robert Louis Steven did kidnap. He has done a few. So this is about what I'm going to do a couple of pages, and I'll finish it off next week. So the story goes. It's called The Screaming Skull by Marion Crawford. I think you've heard of her. I think I've heard of her too. Now, I often heard it scream, "No, I'm not nervous, I'm not imaginative, and I never believed in ghosts unless that thing is one. Whatever it is, it hates me, almost as much as I hate it. Luke Pratt, and it screams at me. If I were you, I would never tell ugly stories about ingenious ways of killing people. For you never can tell but that someone at the table may be tried of his or her nearest and dearest. I have always blamed myself for Mrs. Pratt's death, and I suppose I was responsible for it in a way. Though heaven knows I never wished her anything but long life and happiness." Yeah, if I had not told that story, she might be alive yet. This is why the thing screams at me, I fancy. She was a good little woman with a sweet temper, and all things considered, a nice gentle voice. But I remember hearing her shriek once when she thought, though everyone was sure that it was not loaded, it was the same scream. Exactly the same, with a sort of rising quivery at the end. Do you know what I mean? Unmistakable. The truth is, I'm not realised that the doctor and his wife were not as good terms. They used to bicker a bit now and then, and I was here, and I often noticed that little Miss Pratt got red, and bit her lip hard to keep her temper, while Luke grew pale. Anyway, little people are the worst. And said that the most offensive thing he was that sort when he was in the nursery. I remember afterwards to school he was my cousin, and you know that in the Carly was killed in South Africa there was no sort of thing of the old sailor like me who has taken to gardening. That's interesting. He's probably digging a grave, isn't he? Anyway, Once always remembers one mistakes much more fiddly than one cleverest thing. Doesn't one I have to notice it was dining with the Pratts. One night when I told them the story that afterwards made so much difference, it was night in November, and the sea was more hush if you don't speak. You will hear it now. Did you hear the tide? Gloomy sound, isn't it? Sometimes about this after year. Hello, there's a noise after all. But I'm glad you heard it, because there are people who think it's the wind. Anyway, spooky. Or something. You won't hear it again tonight. I fancy, for it doesn't often come more than once. Yes, that's right. Put another stick on the fire and a little more stuff into the weak mixture you're so fond of. Do you remember your Blackwood, the carpenter on that German ship that picked it up when the community was the bottom of it? Clonitov, I should say, sorry. Went to the bottom, whatever that means. Anyway, I looked them up. So, we were hover to in a howling gale one night, as snug you please, with no land within 500 miles. Well, might not return. Anyway, and the ship coming up and falling off as irregular as clockwork. Biddy boo bebbles, a shortest night poise. See, it's kind of an old, I don't know where they're from. No, we're not to figure it out. Here it goes. Right, okay. Old Crawford then offered his quarters with the sailing maker. I often think of that now, I am sure, for good and all. So, yes, it's on the night like this when I was home for a spell, waiting to take Olympic out on her first trip. It was on the night voyage that she broke the record. You remember, but that date's it. 92 was the year, early in November. The weather was dirty, Pratt was out of temper, and the dinner was bad, very bad indeed, which didn't improve matters. And cold made it worse. The poor little lady was unhappy about it, and insisted on making a Welsh rabbit. Welsh. Okay. On the table to contract the raw turnips and the half-boiled mutton. Pratt must have had a hard day. Perhaps he had lost his patience. All in events, he was in a nasty temper. My wife is trying to poison me, you see, he said. She'll succeed well some day. I saw that she was hurt, and I made believe to laugh and said that Mrs. Pratt was too clever to get rid of her husband in such a simple way. And then I began to tell him about Japanese tricks with spin the glass and chopped horse chair and the like. Pratt was a doctor and knew a lot more than I did about such things, but that only put me on the mettle. And I told the story about a woman in Ireland, it's been about any, who did 4 husbands before he did 3 husbands before anyone suspected foul play. Wow. Did you never hear that tale? The 4th husband managed to keep awake and caught her, and she was hanged. How did she do it? She drugged them and poured metal lead into their ears. Their little horn funeral was the way sleep. No, that's the wind whistling. It's backing up to the southward again. I couldn't tell by the sound. Besides, the other could come more than once in the evening, even at the time of the year when it happened. Been about, hasn't she, when it happened? Yes, it was in November. Poor Mrs. Pratt died, or otherwise she died, suddenly in her bed not long, and died here. I can fix the date because I got the news in New York by the streamer that followed the Olympic when I took her out her first trip. You had the Olympic the same year. Yes, I remember. And when, well, they've been about what a pair of old buffies we are coming to be you. I near 50 years since we were apprenticed together on the Crawford, and that's a ship. Shall you ever, boys? Way they speak, isn't it? Yeah, so it's a bit different kind of language here. So, it's all good back then, wasn't it? So I'll carry on with the story next week. So that was a bit of a little. Mine is quite a few murders there, weren't there, in different countries. Yeah, sounds like they speak one of. Yeah, so that was quite an interesting story. I will continue next week. If you like this little video, please like, share, subscribe, and see you sometime next week. Please have a super day and look after each other. Bye for now.